So we apologize for that. I presume it's the sound tunnel. But of course, we'll be on YouTube. So if you can't hear at the back, then please listen to us on YouTube. I want to say firstly, we are standing in the historical center of our commerce and industry. And I understand we are also in Tanjong Pagar constituency. This is Singapore's history in the making. Across the river, we have the statue that marks the place where Stamford Raffles landed, the man who kick-started our nation 200 years ago. We also have Fullerton Square on the other side, which is where our minister mentor used to give his lunchtime rallies during previous elections. And I remember there was one rally, I believe it was in 1984, when he said very emphatically that, I quote, "I have spent a lifetime building up this place, and no one is going to tear it down so long as I am in charge." I think at that time our population was about 2.5 million, and he left out the 2.5 million people who were his co-builders of this nation. You are the builders of this nation, and on Saturday you will continue that building process by exercising your vote in the interests of yours and your children's future. My friends, I would like to say a few words, because we are in the CBD, on productivity. As you know, we have had productivity measures and various councils in the last 27 years. Unfortunately, for a range of reasons, our productivity has not improved significantly. Now, the foundation of sustainable economic success, and I say sustainable economic success, is productivity. And in terms of the people we attract into our workplaces, into our companies, there are three aspects of a worker's value. His paper qualifications that give us evidence of his knowledge, his experience on the job, which gives us evidence of his skill, and his performance, which provides evidence of aptitude and attitude. But in our country, our focus on paper qualifications has meant that other measures of a worker's worth have not been brought into the mix. This impacts on our economy. Why? Because experience and performance are minimized if we purely look at your paper qualifications. In Singapore, on that basis, we would struggle to raise another Bill Gates or another Steve Jobs or another Jimmy Wales. Now, in relation to productivity, one key issue is poor wages for those at the lowest stratum of our society. Now, I have never believed the idea that the man who drives our buses and sweeps our streets is contributing less to the nation than the CEOs and ministers of our country. Because it's quite a straightforward argument. In order for the CEO to go to work, he needs a clean street. So, for me, the CEO taking his decisions in his office depends entirely on clean streets, on lifts that work, on taxis and buses that run. And that is a basis for all of us in Singapore to consider the importance of narrowing the income gap among our people. Now, Singapore has one of the highest income gaps in the world. We have the Gini coefficient, which is a measure of how unequal we are. 0 being totally unequal, 100 being totally equal. We are at almost 48. Compare this with all the developed countries, which are in the 27 to 32 range. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should adopt Peter Drucker's idea of ensuring that the lowest and the highest wages should only be 30 times difference. That may be too radical for us at this point in our history, but I think we can start thinking as a nation about a more modest equal sharing of the wealth. How do we do it? Now, we propose very strongly the bringing in of a minimum wage. Every human being has the right to a decent, dignified living. A minimum wage is not such a radical idea anymore. 173 of the 193 countries of the world have some form of a minimum wage. Even China, with the largest workforce in the world and a communist country at that, has a minimum wage. Now, compare this with the government's response, which is workfare. Quite apart from the fact that most of your workfare supplement goes into your CPF and therefore doesn't help you in your day-to-day management of your finances, what is actually happening is this. We have companies who are paying their workers an insufficient wage to survive. So the government subsidizes that company to ensure that the worker can survive. Now, government money is our money. The government didn't magic up that money somewhere. We earned it and we saved it. So in effect, we, the people of Singapore, are subsidizing companies which may be unequal in terms of their wage policies. So, a minimum wage. And in fact, if you think about the idea of a minimum wage, we are already paying people an hourly wage, which is in line with what the SDP suggests a minimum wage should be. Think about it. A construction worker in Singapore earns about $5 an hour. The government levy on foreign workers is $1 an hour. That amounts to $6 an hour. We are proposing a minimum wage of $6.50 an hour. Very close to the unit cost of labor that employers are already willing to pay for their workers. The difference is that while the PAP decides to take about 18% of that hourly rate to itself in the levy, we propose that that money, which is the justified worth of the worker for his hourly wage, should be given entirely to that worker. Now, we must ask ourselves, our government has told us that our people are our only resource. We in the SDP believe that wholeheartedly. But if they are our only resource, then we must consider and we must agree that the resources that we channel towards developing our people from the time they are children to the time when they are no longer productive in old age must constitute a larger proportion of our annual GDP. We cannot continue to accept that we will spend $12 billion on enemies and $2, $3, $4 billion on healthcare, education, and housing. This is not acceptable. And you, the people, must say that to the PAP on Saturday. Now, I'd like to say something very frankly to you. When we organized this rally in the heart of the business district, I was a little worried about proposing solutions such as the minimum wage. I didn't know how it would go with the business community. But then I reflected and I thought to myself that the idea that the rich or the comfortable do not care about poverty and struggle is an inaccurate idea. We share a common humanity. We instinctively believe in the worth, the moral worth of fairness, the moral worth of human beings. And on that basis, I decided that I would address you on the question of the minimum wage because I believe firmly in my heart that we all, rich or poor, comfortable or insecure, are equally outraged by poverty and struggle. In the 1950s, one of our most well-known and respected businessmen, Lee Kong Chian, decided to cut his massive wealth in half. As a committed Christian, he knew that he must challenge some of his wealth back to the community. He cut his wealth in half and put that half into what we now know as the Lee Foundation. Now, the Lee Foundation became a key contributor to the arts, to academia, to nature, and to charities in Singapore. Today, it continues to contribute to our progress and our wealth. For example, through scholarships for needy students. Its contribution to our nation has been incalculable. And as I stand here today in the CBD, reminding us of that businessman, I know that the SDP resonates with you and that our outrage is your outrage. Mr. Lee Kong Chian was an icon of the Singaporean way. It is a way of wealth creation. When he started, he slept on a plank bed in his future father-in-law's pineapple and rubber factory. And he never forgot his background. So his way, not only being the way of wealth creation, is also the way of community, the way of investing in our future, the way of assisting human beings to develop and reach their full potential. You, the people of Singapore, have a powerful opportunity to carry that tradition of Mr. Lee into the future. I ask you to go back to your homes, go back to your communities and your workplaces, and tell your friends and family to vote in the very credible opposition candidates, not just from my party, which I love, but from the other respected parties who have come forth to serve you. Let us send a strong and creative check and balance into Parliament over there across the river. And let us then move confidently into the future with no one left behind. Thank you very much.